We sat down to our various desks to record the line Thursday. Most political eyes were trained on the Capitol, certainly, as lawmakers returned to Santa Fe to plug a $2 billion hole in the budget. That starts July 1st. But wait, as they say, there's more. The governor delivered a call just hours before the session's opening gavel. It also includes 4 key areas of police reform, changes to the election code, tax relief, and changes to some licensing issues for alcohol and notary publics. Now, Sophie, is that too much, or is this the moment to get at things like that?
Well, looking at the list, in particular, the items related to COVID-19, they seem pressing to me. And this is the only bite she's got at this apple, right? So the governor. So do it or don't do it. But I don't think that many of these things really cannot wait, especially the election issues, the sending absentee ballots without having to have them requested first. We can't predict today where we will be in November. The thought of the legislature coming back a second time prior to November in order to get that taken care of, especially since we had a really recent ruling from the Supreme Court that laid the groundwork for why it had to happen through the legislature. So I think that one in particular, some of the other ones, if not now, I don't think they can wait until next year. And I'm not sure that anybody, 4 weeks ago, even though we were in the middle of the pandemic, expected that we would be moving so quickly on police reform. But that issue has overtaken the state and has overtaken the news and our thoughts and our lives. Failing to take advantage of that opportunity also feels like it would be a missed opportunity.
Hey, Tom, on Sophie's note there, I can't help but think about John Arthur Smith's quote the other day saying he wants to get in and out of this thing in one day, that he can do this in one day. Possible? I mean, what are we thinking here?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's possible if the only thing you're talking about is how do you plug a $2 billion deficit. But, clearly, the House and the governor have other plans in mind for John Arthur and the members of the New Mexico Senate.
Right.
I don't think it's not a 1 day in and out. It's probably 3 days. I would not anticipate much of the governor's agenda getting through the Senate. Just because of the way politics are. But you're not saying that they're worthy or not worthy. I personally would like to see a lot of the items related to COVID specifically, changing some of the laws with regards to, restaurants and, delivery options, things of that nature as far as businesses that could be restricted. I also like to see, some use of the severance tax fund to, help municipalities deal with decreased gross receipts tax revenues. So there are a lot of specific things that I think are worthwhile that are larger than the $2 billion budget plug. But nonetheless, give them a chance to make law, they'll make law.
Right. Hey, Crystal Sierras, as we know, the Capitol is closed to the public and lobbyists and such. Some of the meetings are taking place online. Certainly, Republicans tried to Clint Purtle's deal went down to defeat 3-2 in the Supreme Court to allow the legislature to meet with only virtual participation. What's your sense of how this virtual approach is going to work? Is the public going to get served here? Or what's the danger point as you look at this?
Sure. Myself and another line panelist, Dee Dee Feldman, the both of us are on the board for the New Mexico Foundation for Open Government, and upholding open meetings is huge. And, what the Supreme Court said is, the words of the Open Meetings Act to say the government entity must allow reasonable public access. And if if we were to dumb that down, internet access should be everywhere. But as Tom knows from working with Comcast, internet access is not always everywhere in New Mexico. And so, I think transparency is absolutely important at this time. There's a condition that we haven't even thought of, which is if there's any bills that need to be made public and there's amendments, will the public at least get 48 to 72 hours to see it, because we usually get 30 or 60 days during a session.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. And, ADA compliance in terms of access to internet, we talked about that. And here's the thing where it's like, okay, let's take the token millennial and ask her, what does she think about the use of technology with government? When sometimes, some of the senators and members of the House can't even use their cell phone to send a text message or a tweet. So of course, this is really this is going to be a major challenge, and we hope best for technology to really shine some transparency and sunshine into our government. But the budget process is not going to be as transparent as it needs to be. The state Supreme Court even said that they really don't want to interfere with the governmental decision making and their ability to act. Mm-hmm. I think that before you even the court in this particular situation with this particular special session, all of us in business, all of us in the community, individuals have had to learn how to pivot and use technology to continue our livelihood. Now the government has to do the same thing to not only continue livelihood, but to make sure that the public has access to government, period.
That's a good point. Hey, Sophie, the idea that, we're hearing a lot of comprehensive stuff being put on the table here. And I just got to come back to this time issue. The idea that we can get to all of these things in a quality manner, have a quality discussion, have the public feel like they understand what the issues are before a vote comes up.
There's no way. There's no way.
Yeah.
Within the time frame that they're discussing, there's no way. I mean, I sort of, when you were talking about John Arthur Smith saying it was going to be a one-day session, I thought, well, because all he wants to do is say, I'm done. He's out, right? He's done. One of the things, just to pick up on what Christelle was saying,
please.
One of the things that I hope we come out of from this tough moment where I think there won't be enough access, there won't be enough discussion, all of those things are going to be kind of pushed aside because of the pandemic and because of the need for apparent need for expediency. I know, for instance, that New Mexico FOG has been, for many years, was pushing for additional access through the internet for streaming, et cetera, et cetera. We're finally there. And then what I would like to see is that we take another big step forward in terms of digital access for people who are not able to be there in person, as we have seen in our businesses, in our courts, and in other arenas.
Tom, the committee hearings the other day, we streamed here at New Mexico in Focus, and just like you would expect, things dropped. Good amounts of the committee hearing dropped. It seems to me if you want to start trouble with this situation, there's going to be plenty of openings here. Because if any given legislator decides they don't want to play along with this, you're going to have a real mess on your hands. It seems to me committee leadership has a real discipline issue on their hands here. What's your sense of that?
Oh, yeah, committee leadership does, Senate leadership, House leadership. But all of the legislators have an increased responsibility to really increase their level of transparency and accountability. Because when you're off camera, when you're off microphone, you can have conversations that will never be picked up and shared with the general public. So that's is in essence a very real concern.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I want to add just really, really briefly that if we're questioning transparency, how truly do we trust our government to make the best decisions possible for our communities? And that's one thing that I think people need to take into consideration at this time. So,
well, and according to our perception survey, the trust of government is for state and federal is down around 20 and 30%. So not much.
No. Well, Tom, I'm going to stay with you on that. I just anticipated another question. You sort of touched on this just a little bit earlier, but the ramifications for November. We are in an election season, and how these men and women comport themselves during this special seems to me has huge ramifications for voting in November.
Oh, absolutely. There are both sides that are really taking a lot of notes, recording a lot of video footage. A lot of this, I think, I would like to think is for the good of the good, as far as good of the state. But unfortunately, a lot of this is really going to be twisted to say, here's all the things I tried to get done, but couldn't because of the legislature.
Yeah, I hear that loud and clear. Absolutely. Hey, guys, thanks to the panel for rolling with all the changing news this week. There was a lot, there's no doubt.